Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to this forum about the future of Vermont Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing at Austin School and the Williams Center. My name is Bill Gurney. I'm president of the organization. I've been here since July, and it's been a pleasure working here, and I'm looking forward to working here into the future. And to my left is Tom Sonneborn, and he may want to say a couple of words before we get started.
I welcome all of you. I hope this forum discussion will be informational for you, enough to help you understand what's going on, and please don't hesitate to ask questions. All you for coming. And Bill has done a very nice job in keeping us all informed and transparent. I think that's very important. So, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, just to give you kind of a little background on where we are. This year, we began the year with $1.3 million on a credit line that was extended to its full limit. We were facing a deficit of about $750,000 in our operating budget, and fewer students than we anticipated actually showed up. So the combination of those three things made us realize that we couldn't go on business as usual here at the school. On the other hand, some things are going well. We have 600 students in our regional programs around the state. They're being served well, and they're functioning within their own local educational agency and school districts. Our services for adults are doing well. We've tried to expand into more services for deaf-blind clients, and we've seen some progress there. So in our access program that Patrick Harris runs is doing very well. Our equipment distribution is also doing well. And our audiology department has turned around and is no longer running at a deficit. And our Little Arrows program is now running without a deficit. So we've seen some very good things coming as the year progressed, but the thing that's been the most challenging is trying to address the deficits that are being run at Austin School and with the Williams Center. There was a PowerPoint that is out on the our website that you can see that shows and goes into the numbers that are really driving the decisions that will be made. I was asked by the board to come up with 3 different options for the year 2014-15. And as we decided to study those options, we realized that we needed to take some action immediately in order to address getting through the end of the current school year. To that end, we instituted a 6% cut in pay for all of our staff. We've also curtailed our contributions to their 401k plans. We've also reduced the hours of a number of staff and also had a layoff with the goal of trying to balance the budget for the remainder of the school year. As I mentioned, that we have a line of credit that in September was $1.3 million. It's currently $700,000. We've been paying that down, and that will be called by the bank on March 17th, which means that we will have to pay somewhere around $700,000 to the bank to eliminate that credit line. So those factors are what, as we realized those things were imminent, that drove our decision for the pay cuts and also for the reductions in time. We've also looked at our health insurance policies. We had a very rich policies before, and we were self-insured. We're looking to switch into the Vermont Initiative, Educators Health Initiative, which means that while our premiums will be slightly higher, the coverage will be as good, if not better, and we won't be self-insured anymore. So that we have a firmer figure each month on what our health insurance costs are going to be. They fluctuated this year dramatically, and that's also fueled our deficit. So going forward, the board will be looking at 3 different options. The first, or perhaps some hybrid of those 3. The first would be having all of our programs run next year as we are doing this year. That will require additional lines of credit from the banks. It'll require us having some leases for Croker Hall, perhaps for other pieces of land as well, and also having sufficient students to be able to pay our staff. There's an option B, which is kind of a hybrid, where we're open with fewer students, fewer staff, and we have more of our facilities leased out. And then an option C, where we really retreat to the programs that are now breaking even or slightly profitable. That would be our regional programs, our adult services, the audiology, equipment distribution, and some of our smaller programs, and then start to rebuild. We've reached out to other organizations that are either nonprofit or have educational based or share our mission, with the hope of finding a partner who can work with us to help defray our costs and perhaps bring more students onto the campus. We've also expanded the mission to include basically birth to old age. Now that I'm reaching that point myself, I start to appreciate the needs of senior citizens more than I once did, and so we're taking a look at senior housing for the deaf and hard of hearing, and may see some progress towards that this spring. So all in all, the picture has improved dramatically over the course of the year to address our deficits and our line of credit. We still have a long way to go, and the next step in that process is the board recommending to me a way for us to continue forward into next year. Tom, would you like to add?
I just want to mention that the board approved the steps that involve dipping into our endowment. We had an endowment of approximately $2 million, and to deal with the deficit, we had already expended $750,000, and we're going to have to continue to dip into that. Hopefully, in the end, there'll be a little bit left to keep us afloat. Whatever project, whatever option we go with.
So the forum is an opportunity for people to share their concerns or thoughts, hopefully some suggestions that we might be able to put into play, and also perhaps to answer some questions that folks might have, or have heard from others that they have, so that we can get the word out to folks in the community. And I guess this is also a good opportunity to thank the folks who have organized the filming of our meeting today, so that other folks around the state and I guess the tri-state area that didn't have a chance to be here today can also see what's going on and be a part of our discussions. So at this point, we'll open the floor for comments or questions.
Thank you. I've been wondering how we can recruit more students. Should I say it? Okay. Hi there. My name is Janet Parker. I live here in Brattleboro. I have worked here in the past for 7 years. And because of the budget, I did have to leave a few years ago, which was unfortunate, because really this is a great place to work with the communication style, the deaf culture, the language that is rich here. It was a great place to work. It was hard to leave, but since then, I've been wondering how we can recruit more students to come here. And I'm wondering what the role is of the consultants. You said there's about 600 students in Vermont that need our services. Are there any way we can get them here? I'm just wondering, what our consultants can do to recruit more students to come here to campus.
The population that the regional consultants work with in public schools are hard-of-hearing children. They, on the spectrum of degree of hearing loss, they're not deaf. They don't identify as culturally deaf. They're not sign language users, with kind of first early identification intervention that's been available the past 15 years, and technological advances. Kids who are identified early with mild, moderate, even severe hearing loss do really well, and they don't need, they're not sign language users. They don't need residential placement. It's like people always look to the consultant program, those 600 kids, they should be here. They're not deaf children, they're hard of hearing children that have done really well with the intervention and supports that are available in the public school, and that's just going to continue to be that way. Technology is there, and parents opt to use technology. That's just the way it is, and it's it's like on the parent infant program now. There's 20 children. There's probably 3 of them who are audiologically deaf. They all have implants. They're all using sign as a support to develop language, but they are also using their auditory skills, and they'll probably be English. They'll probably be oral deaf children. And that's that change has been in the wind for a long time, and that's the way it is.
Okay, thank you. I understand what you're saying. So we serve this deaf and hard of hearing people here, and we do have staff members who use the oral approach with hard of hearing members.
But for the children who are out there, around us, they don't need. They can be Main Street. They can be served effectively in their home local school district. Parents don't want to send their little 5-year-old away, and school districts don't want to pay for residential placement. That's what's been going on. That's been going on for a long time now.
And in recognition of what Terry has said, we've looked to expand the area that we seek students. Chris has done an outstanding job over the course of this year identifying areas that we haven't tapped into for students. And the result of her efforts is we've had an additional student the last week of December who's been on campus since then, and we have potentially 4 more students coming in the next few weeks from New York State, from Illinois, from Wyoming, and from Massachusetts. And we've made application to be certified in all of those states, as well as recertified as an international school through the Homeland Security, so that while we may not be able to serve as many kids on campus here from Vermont as we once did, we're trying to expand our horizons to attract students from other places where there may not be programs that meet their need. We're also looking, as the board has expanded its mission, to accepting more students who would benefit from an individualized education program who may not necessarily be deaf or hard of hearing.
Okay, great. You said there were four prospective students. For which program were they thinking about? Williams Center, Austin, or the
Williams Center for 3 and 1 Austin.
No, 3 behavior, Williams Center behavior,
Yep.
1 autism program.
Yep.
Okay, so nothing for Austin.
Which means that we'll also be hiring more staff in the next few weeks to serve those students the way they need to be served. And 2 of them are females. So we'll be hoping to, 3 of them are females, so we'll be hoping to hire more female staff that folks in the area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to say something. You spoke of the different options. The board's going to decide on an option next week. If they were to pick option B, we would leave my understanding is that we would leave Austin open. Williams Center, what will happen with Williams Center? Can you explain what will happen? Will the kids get sent home? Will they get transferred into a different program?
It would depend on the student. I think some of the students could well stay here and function well in our program. There may be a student or two that will go somewhere else, perhaps to American School for the Deaf, if their needs can best be met there. But at this time, we don't have plans under option B to send our students off to another facility or school, but what we wouldn't do is be recruiting those most challenging kids in the future.
Okay. Hi there, I'm Patrick Harris. My understanding is that the board has been working hard on coming up with an option. I was there at the last board meeting, and I know that they had asked about financial information. Did the board get the information they needed to help with the decision?
Not yet.
No.
I think some of the information we won't have available until after March 6th, when we meet with our financial group. But the one thing we have done is that April has begun producing a weekly cash flow paper that is being distributed to all board members. So they're more aware of the day-to-day fluctuations in our cash flow than they were in the past. So that will help us to make better and quicker decisions on a regular basis.
Great.
We do expect some figures before the March 12th meeting.
Okay.
Any ideas, thoughts? You're welcome.
I just have a question. Some of these, well, all these options are contingent on leasing and so how do you make that decision when, like, you will know next on the 12th that such and such a building is leased? How do you juggle those balls?
Information changes all the time. Numbers change, events happen, and it's a difficult position to be in. One of the things that I mentioned to Bill earlier, that whatever option we pick, we can change it after a period of time, a year, whatever, when we have a better handle of where we are financially and in terms of our recruitment and other aspects. That we can go to back to option A, or if things really get bad, we might have to go to C, whatever, So we do have that little bit of flexibility.
The board will receive a recommendation in May on staffing. That will be contingent on having sufficient students to pay for the staff that we would be hiring, and then the full budget will be approved in June by the board. That gives us some leeway in terms of when the board makes a recommendation in March. We have those 2 months before we have to present a staffing plan, and then also another 30 days before we present the budget to the board.
At the same time, we are somewhat bound by the bank who's calling for our money, and we do have to react to that. That's a little bit beyond our control, that piece.
And Tom is right that some of our decision-making is now out of our hands because of the situation that we're in. Ideally, any organization wants to be able to make their own decisions and follow through on that. And we find ourselves today in a situation where we're dependent on decisions by other people outside of our control that's helping to shape our fate for the future. And it's not an enviable place to be. And we're hoping that as we resolve the issues that we're faced with today, we won't be in this situation again, that we'll be masters of our own fate.
I'd like to add that this didn't happen overnight. The deficit occurred over a period of time. Our enrollment was down. That impacted our budget. And the board has worked very hard on trying to keep things going and keeping with, and did some really good brainstorming and carrying out some good ideas to try to improve the enrollment. We've had fundraising organizations try to help us, things like that. So over time, there were more things that occurred that added to the deficit, and so this didn't happen overnight.
Question, option A, B, and C. Is there an option X where the organization throws in the towel?
I don't think there has to be.
Okay.
I think option C is something that will allow the organization to survive into the future and perhaps reorganize and come out as a much larger organization.
We're going to be a better and an improved organization. After we make all the adjustments, that's the message that we want to send out, is that we are positive about what we can do for deaf and hard of hearing children in Vermont and nationally. Yes, the short-term issues, you know, we do have to do something with the building, the empty building, and things like that. We do have to deal with it in terms of reason.
You said that deaf and hard of hearing. Didn't you just change the mission statement to include, or is that official, or was that just a proposal?
It's official.
So it's not just deaf and hard of hearing students,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Yeah,
So there's
that's right.
more.
Yeah, we have to expand our capability.
Right now, I work with some wonderful staff here. The spirit, the morale is not as great as it could be. We need to know what's happening so that we can take care of ourselves in our future. I know that we all love working here and we want to stay, but we need to think about our options. So we're very glad for you, and we're happy that you've been giving us this information so that we can prepare for ourselves in our future. So thank you for sharing this with us at your earliest convenience.
The last thing that we want to do as an organization is lose good people. But we also respect that we can't give any guarantees about the future, and that people have families to feed and financial obligations of their own. And our staff has already taken a 6% pay cut for this year. Others, as I said, have also had their hours reduced. And throughout all of that process of talking with people about it, there was one thing that struck me was the emphasis on folks wanting to stay and work here. And while no one likes to see their pay cut or to lose hours, particularly in a place they love, the sense was if this can get us through these hard times, then I'll support it. And you don't always see that in an organization. In fact, it's pretty rare to have this, as Bob described, the way people care for this place. And we hope we don't want to do anything that will affect that love for the organization that people have.
that's all right. Oh, hi there. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was here. What I feel is missing here in Vermont, let me see, is related to education, cultural awareness, and it focuses on deaf people and their language. We had an office for deaf and hard of hearing in Vermont, which closed down many years ago through the state. And now Vermont Center has become the center for deaf and hard of hearing here in Vermont. Deaf awareness, deaf culture, deaf exposure, different events, different films and theater related to deafness in Vermont would be great. We can't just focus on Brattleboro alone. If you're saying there's 600 other children who are deaf or hard of hearing in the state, these parents need to be aware of what's going on. There are different types of people who communicate in different modes, and technology does have an influence on that, of course. And in a way, the technology has stolen who we are as a deaf people, and we've allowed that to happen. And really, what we need to convince people is that language will always beat technology. There's just no doubt about it. So we need to educate Vermont about deaf culture and deaf education and the language of American Sign Language. Really, people need to know about this. It's interesting that there are former staff people who were involved with a play here in town in Brattleboro, and I didn't know about this. I didn't even know this play was going on, and then they said, oh, well, you should have found out and asked for an interpreter. However, I feel they should have let us know and said, there's a play available, and we'll make it deaf-friendly. We need more of this happening in Vermont. I don't think that Vermont is a deaf-friendly state anymore. People are leaving the state because of that as well. So it would be nice if we could develop a stronger sense of community here in Vermont for the deaf and hard of hearing folks in our culture.
One thing I failed to mention when I first spoke was that our ASL programs are growing. Last week there were 17 students from Brattleboro High here to tour the museum on the 3rd floor as part of their course in ASL and deaf culture. It's a course in their college within the school program this year. If the results are positive in terms of interest, and they seem to be at this point, they're considering adding ASL as a world language next year to their courses. So,
excuse me, the interpreter, that was at UHS as well?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And our ASL classes are growing here on campus. We had decided to offer ASL 4 this semester, but there weren't enough students, partly because of costs and folks getting budget cuts here as well impacted that. But we have 11 strong in our ASL 3. We're also running ASL 2 and 1 this semester, and we'll get that ASL 4 in either late spring or summer. So that's been a nice thing, and we see that as expanding as well.
And is there anything going on up north, in the northern part of the state?
I believe we're offering courses there. And Chris, can you fill us in?
There's, we had planned on doing White River Junction. There weren't enough students interested for this semester, so hopefully next semester. Michelle Rausch is working very hard to expand it up north. She wants to bring that back because we used to have courses up north. So she is working hard on that to find instructors.
We've also experimented with distance learning for ASL. We didn't get enough turnout in our first attempt, but I think we'll come back and try that again, and there's real potential there to reach an audience outside of this area as well as outside of the state.
This isn't a reason to shut anything down, but something that happened in New Hampshire.
Back in 97 or so, there was, via a grant, there was a deaf education project initiative that was funded by grant to do outreach throughout New Hampshire with distance learning, because a school like this doesn't exist in New Hampshire. So it's something to look at other state models. I understand what you're talking about. If I could digress with a different question at this point after this response, may I ask another question? The 6% salary cut. I am wondering if, and this is just a question, if we're in operation again, will that, by next year, will that 6% possibly come back, or will it continue? Will we be paid at the same rate?
If I could start with this year in the budget cut, if we are able to have more students come in and cover some of our current expenses, our priority would be to bring back the folks who have had their hours cut as the year progresses, if we can afford to do that. For next year, we're building our budget based on the salaries that were in the original contracts. For this year, the 6% will not extend into the next budget cycle.
You talked about the change with insurance, joining with the Vermont Education. Does that apply if option C is chosen? I'm just wondering how that would work, because it may or may not be school.
It would apply starting April 1st.
Possible.
And would also go into next year. The change will come if and when the state goes to a single payer insurance. Right now, we've been accepted into the VEHI through 2016. At which point they're anticipating that the state will have a single payer system, and everyone will be involved in that. Until that time, we're able to stay within the health initiative.
Any ideas? Any more comments?
Just a quick question about the switch over from Blue Cross to the new insurance. I'm wondering about the timing. And in terms of making my personal appointments, how does that play in? Nancy, can you be the person to talk to about that logistic question, or do you know when the switchover would be happening?
We're figuring that it would take place April 1st, but it should be seamless, because Blue Cross Blue Shield now is the provider, and Blue Cross Blue Shield would be the provider under VEHI as well. So the doctor network will remain the same.
Same network?
Yes.
Okay.
The advantage to VEHI is that we'll be going into a much larger risk pool than the one that we're currently in. We would no longer be self-insured the way we are now, up to $70,000 per person. So our liability is huge on the back end of the policy.
You know, you talked about selling lumber. Is that still an option?
We've contacted 2 different lumber companies with the idea that we would do a harvest in the spring when people are able to get into the woods. We're not sure which of those companies will be doing the cut and how much cutting will be needed. We're going to take another look as these students come into the programs and then determine the extent of the cut we're going to need. Because standing timber is not only beautiful to look at and nice for the animals and our students to run around in, but also it represents a long-term investment. And we don't want to harvest more timber than we need to cover our expenses at the expense of future needs.
And is there anything happening with the President's house?
We had the fire marshal here last week to determine whether or not we could lease it out as a school site, and we're told that the cost of leasing in order for a school or a public organization to take it over would require a full wired fire alarm system and also a sprinkler system. Minimum cost $30,000, so that it's not really feasible for us at this time. I think that we will work out some kind of an arrangement where there is some income coming in next year from the President's house, but that's yet to be worked out. But there will be some income generated by the house next year for the organization.
Kroger Hall is acceptable in terms of fire approval and that kind of thing.
We also have a new tenant who will be in and using Kroger Gym starting March 15th, and that's a local circus school who will be having their professional students here doing routines and learning that they can't do in a space that has lower ceilings. And our students will be able to go and see that activity and participate in some of the classes for students. So it'll be a win-win for us. And hopefully be the start of 3 or 4 good tenants that will be in Kroger that help to further our mission as well.
And now what about the dorm buildings? Any idea about them? There's Heinz dorm and the other buildings.
The Heinz dorm is vacant right now, although there was a group renting it over the weekend. And we do rentals through High Five. We also have a local college, Marlborough College, rented it out last summer for 3 months for graduate students going on international assignments for the following year. They've contacted us and they're interested again. There's also a television group from National Geographic that will be filming in the area for a couple of months, and they're also interested in the space. We've had some interest in some of the apartments in Vermont Hall, and we're working out costs for those and who might be in those. And long term, we're trying to work out an arrangement where Heinz will be used full-time, perhaps as a residence for autistic high school students, now that we've expanded our mission. So there are several options for them. At current, we have just temporary visitors to Heinz. The other dorm is full at this time, although we could accommodate a couple more students and hopefully will before the end of the school year. And that dorm is running well.
The board is very aware that we do not want to be landlord for our primary function here. We are most interested in serving children and adults who need services.
Just a question. Perhaps you can advise us, those of us that work here, what our next step should be. What can we do to help you so that this doesn't happen again in the future? Any advice?
Good question. From where I sit, we're right now in a flux of the board is trying to get a little more information to be able to make a decision on March 12th. That's the short-term thing that we're dealing with now, and it's an important one. an important decision that we have to make. Longer term, I'll pass the difficult question to Bill.
Thank you, sir. I think I think that's something that I stressed when we first talked, when the staff meetings were held originally, is that the folks who are working here do an incredible job. And the things that are going on now aren't their fault. It's not because people didn't try hard. It's not because we have gifted people working with students. This is something that's going on across the nation. Some schools dealt with it more quickly than we have. Some schools may be doing a more effective job of dealing with the changes. But every school, whether it's American School for the Deaf or any other school, is facing the same issues we are today. Here, it's partly exacerbated by the fact that we're very rural and the incidence of deaf and hard of hearing is lower here than in other places where, say in Boston or the North Shore or down near Worcester, those schools have adapted more quickly and also have a larger base of students to serve than we do here in Brattleboro. I think that as we move forward and open up our mission, the way staff can help us best is by being flexible and also being able to adapt to the changes in needs. Today we were talking about certification and how many of our staff are certified by the state of Vermont. It may be that we're going to be needing to ask people to get additional certifications so that they can continue to serve students here who may not be the students we're serving here traditionally. So I think for staff who are here on a residential basis, being flexible and open to change will be a requirement in us moving forward and reorganizing. Because things are not going to stay the way they are, but the good things and the traditions can remain if we adapt to meet the needs of the students and adults who will be here on campus in the future. Moving into senior citizen housing, there will be opportunities for our staff there. It'll be different from what they've been doing, may require some new training. But ultimately, it's serving the same folks, and maybe at a different stage in their lives, but continuing on the traditions here at the school and serving the community.
We want to be positive. We want to think that we're going to be making good changes and benefit the staff and everyone else involved. I know I repeated that a couple of times, but it's important. It's hard, but it's important.
And, you know, we're at a juncture, there's no question about that. And some people, you know, can see this as a threat of the school closing. Others may see it as an opportunity for great change. And sometimes it's easy to hold both of those opinions at the same time. But we really should be looking towards the future and what we can do, what we do really well and continue to do, what we can do better, and also what areas haven't we served. So if staff have ideas around what else can we offer here, those are the kinds of things we need to know, because we're willing to try anything that may further our goal of staying open and viable and serving our mission. So maybe there's something none of us have thought about, and those are the kinds of things we need to hear. And I think Janet made a great point about, can we become more of a cultural center here on campus? And we've looked at offering art shows and film series and bringing in speakers. And those are kinds of things we can do. They don't cost a lot of money, but they continue to serve our mission in a way that maybe we don't do enough of right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate hearing these these explanations, and hopefully March 12th, we'll make some good decisions. Is it open to the public, March 12th, board meeting?
Yes, it's open. We have an open period at the beginning of the meeting where people who want to make a comment may, but they need to let us know before the meeting so that we can inform the board that there will be guests there. But then after that beginning part of the meeting, our bylaws, our rules that we follow, they may not make any comment specifically.
And if there are further questions, I'd just like to close by saying that I've been around a lot of organizations over the years, and none of them have as much potential as this organization has. So many organizations have great ideas about how they want to see and what programs they want to develop, if only they had the space and the expertise to do it. We have the space. We have 100 and some odd years of expertise, and we have some great resources around the table here as well as around our board table. And we can accomplish just about anything if we work together and we get some lucky breaks over the next 18 months. That we may look back at this time and see it more as a rebirth than anything else. That's what we're working towards, and we need help along the way. Look forward to all your support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.